all the participants who have joined us today. One second. Yeah. Let me welcome all the participants who have joined us today for this information session, information sharing session. Before I begin, let me first introduce you myself. So I'm Rajesh Kumar Singh. I head the institution International College of Financial Planning. We are India's largest CAP education provider and have been into the financial education space for the last 18 years. We are a part of the Bajaj Capital Group. So that's about me and the company that I take care of. Moving ahead for today's talk, yes, it's going completely around the SEBI RIA. Is everybody on mute? Because I can hear some background noise. Ashok, do a check. So the talk is going to be completely around SEBI RIA module. How to be a SEBI RIA, what takes it to be, what are the requirements, what is the eligibility, what is the process. So we will be talking all about the SEBI RIA. And I also understand that many of you would be practicing financial planners or practicing financial advisors or IFAs or mutual fund distributors or insurance distributors. So yes, so we will be touching upon those areas as well, that how do you migrate or upgrade from being a mutual fund distributor to becoming a SEBI RIA. So we will talk all about that, and ultimately your benefits, how does it help you grow your business, your skills. So that's what the talk is going to be around. I also sense that there would be a lot of students and the professionals who would be here. So for them, yes, I will be talking also, my talk would also include as in what skills, what knowledge is required so that you can focus more around that part. So that's about the talk, the agenda for the day. Two ground rules, ladies and gentlemen, we have set for today. Kanhaiya, I've got a message from Mr. Ansari. He is saying I'm not audible. So please confirm me if I'm audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
So Ansari ji, I request you to check your connection then, because I'm audible. Okay. So two ground rules we have set for the day, ladies and gentlemen. One, we have kept all of you on mute just because it's more than 100 participants, almost 130, 140 participants till now, and a lot more would join also. So for the clarity of the communication, we have kept you on mute, but it doesn't mean you can't ask questions. You can write your questions in the chat. My team is here, Krishan, Kanhaiya, Ashok. I am joined by my colleagues here. They would ensure that I will take up every single question that you write in the chat. Okay, so before I leave the webinar, we will address all your queries there. And also at the end of it, Kanhaiya would allow you to unmute yourself one by one. All you need to do is go and raise hands, and he will allow you to unmute yourself if you want to talk, if you want to ask questions. So that's about what the process that we are going to follow today. Okay, so moving ahead, one second, let me just adjust this slide. Yeah, so moving ahead, before we talk about the RIA model per se, that what exactly is RIA, let us first understand what is the background, some preface around it, that why did SEBI eventually think of framing this RIA model in the first case. Yeah. So the whole idea was that SEBI ultimately realized that financial services industry is very critical. Very critical. It's something like you are playing with, you are managing the money, managing the hard-earned money for individuals, for many people. So that essentially means that finance professionals like you and me need to be maintaining certain standards, need to reach certain standards. So for example, somebody who is a doctor, somebody who is a health, who ensures health, okay, has a minimum standard that he has to qualify this, he has to have this qualification, etc. But at the same time, somebody is a wealth doctor, people like you. For us, unfortunately, in our country, we did not have that framework. We did not have that criteria. So SEBI thought yes, as the market is growing now, as the larger middle class people are also getting into the investments domain, and it will keep growing further. So it's important that we frame certain guidelines, right? And not that the guidelines were framed in 2020. The background goes back to some 12, 13 years ago. So I'll talk all about that. So let us first understand, how does SEBI define investment advice? Because investment advisor is essentially derived from investment advice. So for SEBI, for regulators, investment advice is something which can be on any of the investment products. It can be on securities, it can be on investment products like mutual funds, bonds, IPOs, financial planning, goal setting. It can be any financial advice, right? Or it can be, and it can be in any form for that matter. So you can give it in writing, you can give it oral as well, or you can even send on WhatsApp. So any financial advice in any manner for them is a financial advice. What they exclude from this is anything which is in public domain, any advice which is in public domain. So an advice printed in a newspaper, advice printed in a magazine, advice printed on maybe you can say a website. So that they exclude from this. They say then it's a public domain, then it's not an individual advice that you are rendering, individual advice that you are giving. Okay, so for that matter, again, let's go back. So all your advice, all your transactions, your communication with your clients that you do on a day-to-day basis will relate to this investment advice as per SEBI's definition. And then who is an investment advisor? Investment advisor is like you. Okay, any person who is engaged in that business, in the business of advising on investments or portfolios. And when I say any persons, it also includes, let me emphasize on the statement, it also includes even the sales persons, even the customer service personnel who represent a certain investment firm. It includes them as well, right? So from that angle, even they are supposed to be investment advisors. If they are not SEBI registered investment advisors, then they can simply be passing your advice to them. They can't be doing any fresh advice on their own, any independent advice on their own. They can be just a conduit in that case, if they are not qualified, if they are not SEBI RIA. Okay, so that's how SEBI defines investment advice and investment advisor. So let's look at the background, how all of this started. 1 second, I can see a couple of chats. Let me see if there is any relevant question. Okay, perfect. So Arvind, Gaurav, I am audible. Rest of the participants are able to hear me. So if you can probably disconnect and reconnect, you will be able to hear me. Yeah. So let's look at the chronology, how all this started. So in year 2007, so that's 13 years ago, SEBI issued a draft guideline, the draft regulations. And this was more for the public comments, public discussion, that what should be done? How do we regulate this whole investment advisory space? Okay. Then finally, after 4 years, 2011, they issued a concept paper. Basis whatever the feedback came, they kind of summarized all that. And then they prepared a final concept paper. And this was then rolled out to a lot of stakeholders in the industry. So investment advisors, the CEOs of various investment firms, the financial planning firms, the boards and other stuff. And then they invited their comments. And based on that, then they framed, in 2012, they finally made the act. They finally made the regulations for investment advisors. And then in 2013, it was finally rolled out. It was finally put into place, right? So it was in January 2013. And as it was stated in the regulations, so it was rolled out in January. It was stated that from 90 days from that day, it will become applicable. So it became applicable in 2013 itself. right? So for the last 7 years, it's already applicable. In 2020, what happened is they just modified that regulation. They amended that regulation. Okay. To 2020, they amended that regulation. Let me emphasize this again. In 2020, they amended this regulation. And the amendment was just on 2-3 points, but it had a major impact. Okay, I will explain you what was there before the amendment and what happened after the amendment. So I will be talking about both today. So from 2020 onwards, what you and me and everybody is supposed to follow is the amended regulations. SEBI's amended regulations on investment advisors, the 2020 regulations. All of this you can find on SEBI's website. 2013 regulations is there, 2020 regulations is there, or if you find it difficult finding, we can always help it. We can send you the regulations as well. Okay, so let's look at, then SEBI said that anybody who is giving an advice has to register. Anybody who is into investment advisory space has to register with us, right? So then the point is, in who all need to register? Anybody that is a very large area, right? So I'm a chartered accountant. So if I'm advising somebody, do I need to register? That's the question, right? So then let us try to decode that SEBI's anybody word. So if you are offering investment or financial advice or financial services, investment, I have already explained you how SEBI defines it. Any financial product for that matter, for them is investment. So if you are doing that, you will need to register. It is mandatory for you to register with SEBI. Okay. Anyone who presents himself or herself as any one of these terms, whatever terminology you name it, you call yourself investment advisor, wealth manager, portfolio manager, financial advisory advisor firm, you call your IFA, whatever you call. If you are into this domain, you have to register yourself with SEBI. Or anyone who is into multiple financial products. So if you are only selling mutual funds, only selling one product, maybe mutual funds, and you are a mutual fund, the AMFI ARN holder, then you are exempted from it. Then you do not need to register. But then you can only, then the SEBI restricts also that you can only sell and advise on mutual funds. You can't advise on any other product for that matter. Okay. If you are selling insurance, solely insurance, only insurance, right? And you can be restricted to insurance and you have IRDA license, then you can only advise, merely advise on that insurance products. That's all. The moment you step across, you cross the line and you say that your client, maybe let's say you are selling mutual fund and your client, let's say, asks for you on an advice on pension fund or maybe bonds or maybe stocks or maybe insurance, right? You can't advise in that case. Now your question would be that, you know, the back of the mind, it would be running in your head says, so I can always offline advise. How does SEBI get to know about it? Yes, you're right. SEBI does not get to know about it. But the moment the customer goes and puts a complaint that my advisor gave me this advice, tomorrow, if the customer makes a loss or runs into any trouble, and if he goes and makes a complaint to SEBI that my advisor made me this advice, then the happiness of ours is gone. Then we are held responsible for all this, and the entire thing is then cut. So that's the whole idea. You know, the SEBI says you that if you are doing one product, you have to restrict yourself to that one product only. The moment it's a multiple product, you have to mandatorily have SEBI RIA registration. I can see a couple of chats. I'm taking the liberty of reading the chats also so that I don't miss out anything. Yeah, so Juneja Saab, yes, the person who is selling mutual fund, bonds, insurance, multiple products at the same time has to necessarily register, right? There is no escape. See, SEBI has implemented the rule, implemented these regulations. It is just a matter of time, maybe 3 months, 4 months, or a year. But then ultimately it will tighten the grip. And the regulations will become tougher. Because the whole idea is to protect the investors. The idea is not to let advisors do any kind of wrong advice. That's the purpose. So these are the people, 3 categories who have to register. And this includes everybody. So then the point is then who are exempted, who need not register. So the exemptions are these. Someone who gives a general advice. General advice is, so let's say I don't talk any specific stock, any specific plan, any specific thing to a person. I just said, for example, I say that it is good to invest in mutual funds these days. This is a general advice. If I keep giving this kind of general advice, I need not register. Then it's fine. Okay. I told you that if you are doing one product solely, see, SEBI emphasizes on this word solely. If you are doing just one product, insurance, you are a pension fund agent, or you are a mutual fund distributor, just one product, then you need not register. Okay. Just one product. But the moment it's more than one, you have to mandatorily register. If you are advising only to NRIs, okay, not even one single client is Indian, you are completely advising to NRI clients, then RIA registration is not mandatory for you. That can be an added advantage because probably the NRIs, your investors might trust you all the more, knowing that, okay, he is a SEBI registered guy, so he might have more credibility. They might trust you more, but it's not mandatory for you. Okay. Any representative or partner in any firm, any investment firm has to have that, right? So you are exempted only when, let's say, in a firm is registered. A firm is registered as an RIA. So let's say I have a firm, ABC Financial Advisory, and the firm is registered as an RIA. Then I need not register myself again. Okay, then I am exempted. If my firm is registered, I am exempted. Okay. So I hope I am good so far, and I am very clear, audible. The other exemptions are the advocates, the solicitors, the law firms, the CA, the chartered accountants, the cost work accountants, CSIs. But it has been said that they can offer advice, only those advice which is incidental to their professional practice. Incidental means this is not a specific, which happens by default. So meaning to say, let's say I'm a chartered accountant, right? So let's say I'm a chartered accountant and somebody came to me asking for a tax advice, tax planning advice. Now that is incidental to my business. I am managing books of accounts for that person. I am filing returns for that person. So tax planning becomes a part of that whole transaction. Then it is incidental. Kamalji, I can see you have raised hands. We will come back to you at the end. You can be just there hanging on. We will come back to you. For sure, we will come back to you. So then those are exempted. Okay, only incidental advice. But me being a chartered accountant, the moment I start giving advice on mutual fund investment, stock investment, or any other investment for that matter, then I do not have an exemption. Then I need to mandatorily register. My exemption ceases there. Okay. So stockbrokers, sub-brokers, portfolio managers, the merchant bankers, they are exempted. Why? Because they are anyways regulated. They anyways need their own registration with SEBI, right? A fund manager, again, because it needs a separate SEBI registration. So the idea for the SEBI was anybody who is not registered, the stockbrokers and all have their mandatory SEBI registration. So they said that people who are not under SEBI registration coverage, but still do financial advice, bring them under this net, bring them under this guidance, regulations, and track them. Yeah. So now you understand who have to register, who are having exemptions, and to what extent. So practically speaking, summarizing, exemptions doesn't exist. Exemptions do not exist for anybody because it's one product. For a mutual fund or insurance, I have not seen, personally, I have not seen a mutual fund guy restricted to being just mutual funds. I've seen him getting into multiple products. To the incidental advices, CA and CAS, if at all they are getting into investment, they will need to register. Sweta ji, we will come back to you. You can just hang on. We will come back to you for sure. So let's understand the pros and cons. What are the benefits? What are the advantages of registering as SEBI RIA, and what are the disadvantages? What are the lacunas there? So the advantages are, one, SEBI registration is a mark of credibility. There is no question on that, right? When your client knows that he has been registered, he has been kind of stamped by India's regulatory body of stock market investments and the financial markets, right? Probably the client has highest degree of trust on you. The client understands that, okay, this is the guy to bank upon. So that's one thing. In the whole process of becoming an RIA, you have to acquire certain knowledge and skills. You have to acquire, and your knowledge and skills in that process get certified, right? You acquire certificates for that. You may be a mutual fund expert today, for example, let's say. You may be a mutual fund expert today. You may be an insurance expert today, but you need kind of a certificate to stamp that, to prove that. So during that journey, you acquire those certifications, which SEBI says is a trademark for your knowledge and skills, right? So that is an add-on for you. The biggest change that it brings is people look at you as an advisor, not as an agent, right? People know that the person who I'm talking to is an advisor, is not somebody who is acting as an agent who will try and sell me and try to sneak away commission from my pocket. Yeah. And then you can also offer fee-based advisory. You can charge fee. You have to mandatorily charge fee for all the advice that you give. Now, the fee can vary. The fee can be 1 rupee, fee can be 1,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees, lakh of rupees. That's completely depending on your business model, your business plan, the client's paying capacity, the client's portfolio, and a lot of other factors. Yeah, that's a business thing. SEBI does not restrict you there. Okay, but let's look at the cons now. What are the disadvantages? So one, it involves basic compliance. Basic. The compliance is not very tough at all. The compliance is very basic. The registration process, the joining process is very easy. And even the yearly check is done. One single yearly audit is done. That again, you have to do. SEBI doesn't come and do any audit for that matter. You have to get a simple audit done and submit your annual report. So that's a very simple thing to do. Another con or another negative side is that if you are a SEBI registered investment advisor, you can't take commission. You can't take distribution fee. Can't have commission-based earning. Okay. But then there are ways that I have seen people in my network or people whom I know who have registered as SEBI RIA have found out ways around it. Yeah. So what they are doing is, so let's say mine is an investment advisory firm. Okay. Mine is an investment advisory firm. So what they are doing is they are taking the license, the SEBI RIA license in the name of the firm, and for in the individual name of their own, maybe their wife or the partner, they are having the mutual fund agency code or the insurance agency code, etc. And whatever advisory they are doing, that they are doing from that RIA license, and the selling that they want to do, they route it through here. So kind of they are taking earnings from both the places. But from the single place, from the single code, you can't do it. You will have to probably then think of business ideas which can help you tackle this. There are ways to tackle it. People are already doing it, but then you will have to do it like that. Okay, moving ahead. So what are the requirements? Now the question is, how do you actually become an RIA? What is the eligibility criteria? So there are 4 things that I will be talking about. The first is qualifications. If you can read the last line, graduate with 5 years experience in financial sector, which I have kept in red, the last line, which I have kept in red. Why I have kept in red is because this was there in 2013 regulations. Okay, now this has been struck off. This is not applicable now. That's why it's in red. It's no more applicable. It's stopped. In the amended regulations of 2020, this is not there. A graduate with 5 years experience is not eligible. Then who is eligible? Anybody who has a professional qualification. Professional qualification here means CS, CS, ICWA, that kind of qualification, or a postgraduate degree. That means an MBA or a master's or an MCOM, that degree, or a diploma. That means a postgraduate diploma, PGD, but of 2 years, not 1 year program. A 2 years postgraduate diploma, okay, from a government or a foreign institution, from a government recognized or a foreign institution. Either that, or you may be a CFA charter holder. Then that's the basic qualification you need to have. Now, the most important thing out here is your masters cannot be MA in Hindi, MSc in maths. It cannot be. They have also regulated what streams it can be. The streams that it can be from is finance, accountancy, economics, business management, which is MBA for that matter, commerce, economics, capital markets, banking, insurance, actuarial science. Only these specializations, if you come from in your master's, in your PG, only then you are eligible. If you are MA Hindi, you can't be a SEBI registered investment advisor, SEBI registered financial advisor. Then all you can do is, if you are selling mutual funds, restrict yourself to one product, just sell mutual funds. You can't be diversifying then. Okay. That's the qualifications part. One catch here is, if you have heard of CFP, CFP is Certified Financial Planner, world's topmost certification in financial planning. I'll be talking about that too. So if you have heard of CFP, now see the board, the industry is in talks with SEBI to include CFP here. So if you're a graduate plus CFP, then you should be allowed to be registering as SEBI RIA. This is what industry and the board is in talks with, is pursuing SEBI to consider. Okay, that's not finalized till now. That's what is being proposed, is under talks. Okay, so that's under talks, under consideration. As of now, this is what we have to follow. The second part is the certifications. Merely having these qualifications doesn't make you eligible to do a SEBI RIA registration. The second part is certifications. Now, certifications, you need to have either of these, okay? Either you need to have NISM 10A, 10B certification, which is investment advisor certification, or you need to be a CFP, okay? In the SEBI regulation, if you go and read, SEBI has written NISM 10A, 10B or CFP or professional certifications as equivalent, right? So now there is an ambiguity whether certifications like CWM and all will be considered or not. That's not written. That's not written. Please go and read the SEBI circular again. That's not written there. CFP and NISM 10A, 10B are categorically mentioned in SEBI circular. They are clearly mentioned in SEBI circular that each of them would be the required certification for doing a SEBI RIA registration. The experience needed is minimum 5 years. Minimum 5 years. Okay, 5 years experience in financial sector is needed. Now 2 years, what you read just below that is 2 years right now to apply. In next 3 years, you have to meet that. You have to meet that criteria, because SEBI said that all of a sudden we are introducing this change. So there would be many practicing IFAs or practicing advisors, investment advisors, who would get affected, right? So how to give them a time, give them a bandwidth wherein they can go and be eligible for it. So that's why SEBI is saying, even if your experience is 2 years now, you can apply. So in next 3 years, you have to meet that requirement. So that 3 years will already make you 5 years. Yeah. The skills needed, of course, as I said, the skills needed is SEBI wants you to be having knowledge on financial markets, investment products, the retail financial products, the financial planning, tax planning, retirement planning, and all that. But overall ethics, overall business ethics, the financial transaction ethics, that's something that SEBI is emphasizing on. Yeah. So that's the eligibility criteria. These are the 3-4 eligibility criteria that we need to keep in mind. You can take a screenshot, or my team will be sending you the recording of the entire session. So don't worry. You can be focused on the talk. You will get the recording so you can refer to it later. Now there are certain requirements like fees, etc. So let me explain you that too. So the fees, the fees are paid at 2 steps. The first is the initial application fee. When you apply to SEBI for becoming an RIA, you have to give an application fee. So that application fee, if you are making an application in your name as an individual advisor, then it is 5,000 rupees only. But if you are making an application in the name of a corporate, in the name of a firm, in the name of a partnership firm, in the name of a maybe a private limited company, your investment advisory firm, then it is 25,000 rupees. So that's the initial application fee. With that, you submit your application. Okay. The moment it is processed, once it is processed and SEBI confirms that yes, you are eligible to be a SEBI RIA, right? So when your registration is granted, then you need to pay an additional 10,000 rupees, additional 10,000 rupees for individuals, additional 5 lakh rupees for corporates, for firms, for non-individuals. If you are registering your firm as individual, just 10,000 rupees additional. That's all. 5,000 rupees initial application. If the application gets rejected, this 5,000 is gone. This is not refundable. Okay. 10,000 rupees. Once the application is granted, once your RIA is approved, you have to pay 10,000 rupees additionally as your SEBI registration fee. That's all. That's the fee. You have to meet net worth criteria. You have to meet net worth criteria. So if you are an individual applicant applying for SEBI RIA registration in your name, the minimum net worth you need to have is 5 lakh rupees. 1 lakh, which you see in red, now you understand what that is. As I said earlier, anything in red here is, that essentially means that was there in 2013 regulations, which is no more applicable, which is struck off. I have deliberately kept it there so that you know, you have clarity that this is what was there earlier, this is what has changed now. So 5 lakh rupees net worth. Now, how do you prove that net worth? Is getting a CA certificate. Your CA will certify that he has a net worth of 5 lakh rupees. Yeah. 50 lakh rupees in case of corporates, non-individual RIA application. Compliances that you need to follow is you will have to mandatorily be doing risk profiling of all your clients. You will have to, because you will be dealing in multiple products. So SEBI will expect you to adhere to their ethics, adhere to the suitability of products, keeping the client's interest first kind of approach that they will expect from you. You will have to adhere to their code of conduct. So this is more of an in-principle understanding. Okay. Physically, what you will have to do is 2 things. One, maintenance of all records and KYCs. Every single client who will deal with you, you will have to maintain their KYC with you. You will have to maintain the records of all the transactions that they do with you. That's one. Second is yearly audit. That again, not by SEBI. You can go to any CA for that matter, and SEBI will prepare an audit report, annual audit report, that they have seen all your KYCs, records and everything verified, and it's done. Okay, so that's the small, simple compliance once in a year that you will have to do. Simple, basic compliance, not very tricky, not very complicated. The business model that you can follow is, I have written at the top, advisory based. You will have to charge fee from people on advice. Distribution based, the commission based model, you can tweak around. As I said earlier, you can tweak around, you can have partners, you can have in other names, you can have in your wife name or other ways, you can have codes wherein you can route it to, but in the IFA's name, no, you cannot. Okay, so that's the business model that you can build around. So these are the requirements you understood from the qualifications perspective, from the knowledge perspective, from the monetary perspective to what is the fee, what is the net worth required, and then from the compliance perspective. So Kamalji, Shweta, Raniji, I can see, I mean, I request you just to hang on. We will be coming and talking to you, to all of you. Rest assured. Yeah. It is just that, you know, if I start taking questions now, it will break the flow and then it will stop the whole conversation. Okay, so how to be an RIA? Now that you have understood what is RIA, who all need to register, what is the requirement, what is the qualification and everything. Now the question is how to be an RIA, right? If you have to apply, how do you apply? So let me explain you that too. So there is a SEBI Form A. That's an investment advisor application form that you will have to fill. This can be done online as well. On SEBI's website, this is there. We can send you the link, not free. So that's one. You will have to fill the details online, and then payment you can make through offline through a DD, or you can also pay online through a card or net banking. So you can make the payment of that 5,000 rupees. You remember 5,000 rupees initial application fee that you will have to do. Once you are approved, you will be given, once you make the payment, you will be given a intermediary portal access by SEBI. You will get a login ID password, which will be intermediary portal access. Therein, you need to upload all your education proof, your certification, your experience, your net worth certificate from a CA, details of infra, what office, your residence, everything. Your PAN card, Aadhaar, address, ITR of last 3 years, all this. And one more important thing needed here is your CIBIL score, your proof of CIBIL score. That has to be all uploaded in that intermediary portal. As soon as it is approved, you will get a flash there that you have been granted the SEBI registration for investment advisory. And then all you need to do is pay that 10,000 rupees and you will get your SEBI registration certificate. Okay. What you get your SEBI registration certificate is like this. This is a sample. So your SEBI registration certificate comes like this. It says that you are registered by SEBI as an investment advisor. Okay. So that's what is the recognition which comes now, whether you frame it and put it in your office or you put it on your website, you put it anywhere. That's the kind of a trademark, a credibility mark for you. Use it to your advantage. So that's about it. In the qualification space, if I go back. If you see here, see everything else is something which is pre-attend. I mean, today I can't tell you that go and do PG and then come to me, right? So everything is pre-attend, experience, skill, all that is pre-attend. What is not there pre-existing is certification. Certification is something that you will have to do, you will have to acquire. Similarly, on the next slide, if you see net worth and all is a formality. It's nothing difficult. The only catch here is certification. How do you get that NISM 10A, 10B or CFP, either of these certifications? Yeah. So let me talk to you about that. How do you clear that hurdle? How do you cross that path too? And that too very easily. Okay. So NISM 10A, 10B, telling you a little about that. NISM 10A, as it is also called level 1 of investment advisory of NISM, is a very basic. It is not difficult at all. It's a very basic content, which is around the financial markets, which includes stocks, which includes mutual funds and all other investment products. It has the concepts of risk and versus returns, basic concepts of financial planning, not very detailed ones. The concepts of asset allocation, the portfolio building, etc. Insurance planning, again, basic stuff, retirement planning, tax planning, and regulatory environment, the basic laws around investments. This is what is covered in level 1. This is what you study and then you appear at exam. Okay. So you you enroll with NISM for investment advisory 10A certification. You study, you prepare yourself, do an online exam, clear it, you get 10A. Similarly, then you clear 10B, you get 10B. What is 10B? 10B is again the same thing, but the concepts are a little advanced here. Understanding the whole securities market here. So securities market here would also include a bit of derivatives and the securities operations, all that here. Operational aspects of all the financial transaction, the AML and all the other stuff you will be studying here. The personal financial planning, preparing financial plan construction, all that comes here, but basics. It's not very detailed. Let me again tell you, NISM 10A, 10B is very basic. It's very easy. It's not very comprehensive at all. One second, this keeps moving across, so I'm struggling to put it here. Yeah, now it is okay. So that's the NISM content that I told you. Coming to the NISM exams. So once you studied all that, you have to register. You have to register for exam. Exam would cost you just 15,000 rupees, just around 15,000 plus taxes. So it would come around 16, 17,000 rupees, whatever. That's the fee that you have to pay. It will be a 2-hour exam, 2-hour online exam. Okay, the exams are conducted on NSE Center, the NISM centers. And it's 100 questions, 100 marks exam. There would be negative marking in it. The passing percentage is 60%. It's a very basic exam, not very difficult to crack. Then comes 10B. 10B is again 1,500 rupees. Test duration again is of 2 hours. But the questions here, you see, if clearly I have written 68 approx, not 68 exactly. So it keeps varying. It keeps varying in the range of 65 to 70. So that's why we call it 68 approx is the question that you get. It will have a couple of questions on case studies kind of, and all will be MCQs. All will be MCQs. Okay. Again, 100 marks, 60 passing marks, 3 years validity for your certificate. So that's 10A, 10B for you guys. Online MCQ exam conducted by NISM, negative marking system is there. Exam level, if you ask me, is easy. It's moderate. It's not very difficult at all. Preparation time for both of these that you might have to put it 1 month. So again, 1 month, I don't mean to say 6 hours a day. It kind of 1.5 hours a day for a month, and then you are through with it. You can take the exams. You can appear at the exams. But then you will need to study a bit, because trust me, dealing in a product for 10 years does not mean conceptually or theoretically you are ready to take the exam. Passing the exam needs a lot of theoretical knowledge, a lot of conceptual knowledge as well, not only the practical stuff. Practical is excellent, is required when you work, but then theoretical knowledge is required more to pass the exams, the certification. So that would be needed. Yeah, so a bit of preparation is required. So yes, we do teach at ICUFP, International College of Financial Planning. We teach NISM modules. We teach all this 10A, 10B. So you get a kind of online learning system from me, where you have the recorded lectures from the esteemed faculties. The faculties again here would be CFAs, CAs, CFP, that kind of faculties, would not be just the investment advisor exam passed out. The guys would have years and years of experience, minimum 2 decades of experience, and have taught more than 1,000 odd students. They would be the one who would be giving you the pre-recorded sessions. Now these sessions would be with you for complete 1 year. Within 1 year, you can view it as many times as you wish, 10 times, 20 times a day on your mobile, on your laptop, wherever you go, you keep seeing it, and then you master the whole of this. We will give you some brief study notes. Although the NISM books are available, you can buy it from the market, but then we will be giving you study notes, because the study notes are very concise. So it's kind of a kunji, you can say, to prepare you for the exam. And then, yes, we give you 2 mock tests as well to get you a feeler of the online exam. We give you an online access where you have online mock tests to take. You do all that, and then you prepare yourself. So that's about 10A, 10B. 10A, it has 12 chapters, so 12 videos. For each of the chapters, we have separate videos. So those videos will be given to you, 2 mock tests. 10B, again, has 6 chapters. So 6 videos will be made, or 1 video for each chapter, and 2 mock tests. So that's the NISM 10A, 10B if you have to study with us. And we prepare you to crack this. So that's 10A, 10B. The other option that you have seen there was CFP, which is far more holistic, far more advanced, far more bigger and deeper and credible than this. So let me talk to you about that too. What is CFP? CFP is Certified Financial Planner. Certified Financial Planner. This is world's only 4-in-1 program. Only 4-in-1 program. So when I say 4-in-1, within one single program, you get 4 international certifications in one single program. That's CFP for you guys. It's in India since 2002. And we are the people who brought CFP to India, FPSB board to India. So we have absolute command on CFP. We are the ones, our team is the one who has helped the board prepare the curriculum, write the books, write the other stuff. So kind of it's a program which we kind of have all the ownership to build in. So it's an international mark of excellence. It's a gold standard program considered to be at par with programs like CFA. Can I just pause for a while? My laptop is, yeah, it's charging now. Yeah. It's offered by Financial Planning Standards Board USA. It's a globally recognized program which is valid in 27 countries across the world. NISM 10A 10B is valid just for that registration. It does not have even a wider acceptance. But whereas CFP is a program which is valid in 27 countries across the world. So it's a much bigger program. It's a far more credible program. Okay, it's a really kind of a professional program. The way you look at CFA, CFA is more of a corporate finance focused program. CFP is more of a personal finance focused program, but they are almost in that same league. Of course, CFA is a little tougher than CFP. CFP is not that tougher. CFP is kind of moderate when you call the toughness, the difficulty level. CFA would be high or far more tougher than CFP, but then it has that kind of credibility. This is what I am talking to you. And the best thing is, as I said, within one single program, you get 4 certifications. So CFP has 4 levels. CFP exam has, CFP, if you want to do, it will have 4 exams. Each level will have 1 exam. So CFP level 1 is investment specialist. CFP level 2 is retirement and tax specialist. CFP level 3 is risk and estate specialist. CFP level 4 is the final level where you have CFP. So each of the level, when you complete, you get an international certification from FPSB USA directly, right? So 4 certifications you acquire within one single program. As I told you about the curriculum, so here is the curriculum of CFP. Now you look at NISM 10A 10B curriculum and look at CFP curriculum. It is far, far bigger, far, far deeper than NISM 10A 10B, right? So if you actually study CFP, 10A 10B becomes a kind of a very easy job for you. It's a cakewalk, absolute cakewalk for you. So CFP level 1 has got 3 modules in it: personal financial management, investment planning and asset management, and regulatory environment. Now imagine investment planning was there in 10A 10B just as a chapter. Here it's a standalone module. So you will be studying to that depth, to that extent, right? So the more you study, the more conceptual knowledge you build. That's what this program does for you. So that's for CFP level 1. CFP level 2 has 2 elements: retirement planning and tax planning. You will be studying about the whole of financial planning, the tax retirement planning piece, and the tax planning, the tax saving, advising, everything. CFP level 3 is risk and estate planning. So risk is all about insurance. You will be studying about insurance products there. Estate planning is the wealth management, the wealth distribution thing, so here it will include all about wealth management, succession planning and everything. CFP final will have financial planning process, the financial plan construction, the selling skills, engaging clients for life, your creating financial plans. All that is what you study in CFP final. So the whole of this, if you put together, 10A, 10B is not even 20% of this, is not even 20% of this. So I teach both. I teach CFP also, I teach 10A, 10B also, right? But then the fact is 10A, 10B is not even 20% of this. This within 6-7 months prepare you for 4 global certifications with far deeper knowledge in finance, with very credible knowledge and certifications. That is merely a kind of a validation for you to apply for SEBI RIA. Yeah. So if you are actually looking at building knowledge, if you are actually looking at adding value to yourself, adding value to your profile, or maybe growing into financial world, then CFP is something that you need to look at. you would be worried about the fees because I was talking about NISM fees. So let me also quote about CFP fees here. So this is what the CFP program, when you do, board charges you. So initial registration is $165. FPSB has made it mandatory that they offer you online books, the e-books. That is mandatory. Everybody has to pay for it. So that's $60 for 1 to 3 levels and $120 for the final level. Now, all this fee that you find written here is not to be paid in one go. It is paid one by one. So that makes the whole thing easier for you. One by one over a period of 6 to 8 months, when whatever time you take to complete. So that makes the whole process very easier for you. It's not that the whole fee is $890, but it's not paid in one go. It's paid one by one. So level 1, when you buy level 1 books this month, next month you book for exam. So $60 you pay today, $60 you pay in the next month. $60 is what? Roughly around 4,000 rupees. So 4,000 rupees a month is what you paid for level 1 in the month when you buy. When you book for the exam, you pay another 4,000 rupees approximately, go for the exam. So that way you pay in breaks and you qualify, you move ahead. Again, it's an online exam. The exam is conducted by FPSB USA directly these days, not by NISM. NISM used to conduct it earlier, but FPSB USA directly these days. And exam is administered online in a very high-tech environment. So it's an online proctored exam where somebody is watching you live on the screen. You have to give the exam right from your home. So very good, intelligently made system is what is used for this. No negative marking here. NISM has negative marking. This has no negative marking. The passing percentage varies somewhere around 45 to 50% is what 50%, 55% is what you need to score. But I am proud to say yesterday only CFP Jan exams results were declared, and our institution has clocked 80% success rate, 80% success rate in CFP, which is highest in the industry. Whereas all our other peers, the average Pan India score is just around 50%, not even 50, just around 50, 48%. We had a 80% passing rate. Right. So the kind of content that we come and teach, our faculties, the hard work that they put with you, make it easy for you to do. So that's how do you study for CFP? Come to us, come to ICFP. We are India's first and largest CFP education provider. We have the choice. You have the choice to study in the classroom, in virtual online classes, or self-paced. Classroom these days, because of COVID protocols, is not working. So we have virtual online. Virtual online is a live class like this. The only thing is, as of now, you all are on mute, but in the live class, it will not be. It's a two-way transaction because it's a webinar, so you're on mute. But otherwise, in the live class, it's a two-way. You talk to the faculty and they teach you live there. And it's a weekend class only. So anybody, working professional, independent practitioners, students, everybody can do it. And there is also a self-paced learning mode. Okay, so you feel that, no, I'm already a chartered accountant. You feel that, no, I'm already in the industry for 10 years and I know the basics. I do not need a live class. But if somebody gives me a pre-recorded lecture, I can view the lecture n number of times and then I can prepare myself. So that option is also there. We give you a pre-recorded learning mode too. So both the options are there. And then you get the books and a lot of other content from us. Most experienced faculties, as I said, you have CFP, CFA, CA, all these faculties teaching you, not somebody who is an MCOM coming and teaching you. All these professionally qualified people with decades of experience coming and teaching you. The program head of financial plan, CFP, is Ms. Madhu Sinha. She herself is a former director of Financial Planning Standards Board. Now imagine the former director of Financial Planning Standards Board herself coming and teaching you. So that's the kind of a stellar faculty that we have with us. Of course, we have India's most comprehensive CFP study material that I can bet on. And my study materials, that when I talk about, it has all this. So we give you concept books. FPSB gives you online books, which you can't even download. Now imagine how would you study it? We give you printed hard copy of concept books to study. We give you workbooks to practice questions. FPSB books has each chapter got just 3-4 questions to practice. Will that prepare you for with the right knowledge? No. Our books will have hundreds of questions. Each practice book will have close to 600, 700 questions, each level. Now each level, each module will have 600, 700 questions to practice. That's the kind of practice that we let you do. We do group projects. We give you videos. Every single class is recorded and the videos are shared with you so that you can view the video anytime, any number of times. The access is there with you for 1 year, complete 1 year. So you can view the video as many times as you wish, revise the concepts, whatever you want to do. We give you online mock tests before you take the actual exam, the same kind of exam, the similar exam, 75 questions, 2 hours exam in a very online environment. That's done on our system, our setup. So you kind of practice your hands-on to prepare yourself. We more like an MBA project. We have assignments, we have case studies, we have guest lectures, everything to make it far more reaching for you. It's not just certification, it's a kind of complete package that we bring to you. And before every exam, so exams happen once in a month in the 3rd week, approximately in the 3rd week. So just before the exam, we do have exclusive doubt clearing session with the faculties. So wherein they come and do your final preparation and doubt clearing for 2 hours a day for 3 days. So they prepare you for the exam. So probably that's what makes us achieve that 80% passing rate. The good books, the good projects, good workbooks to make you do enough of practice, preparing you with online mock test, and then ultimately the doubt clearing sessions. Then you are eventually prepared to take the exams, right? So that's about the CFP offering that we have for you. As I talked about NISM study fees, so let me talk about CFP studies fees as well. As I said, you have CFP 4 levels. So you can study with us level wise. If you want to join, you can join for level 1, level 2, one by one. But the best is to join in all the levels in one go, because then you save a hell lot of money here. Because if you join, let's say level wise, and the total fee you end up paying in classroom is 65,000 rupees, in virtual 55,000, in e-learning it's 40,000. Whereas if you join for all the programs together, you say that, yes, I'm joining for CFP complete program. Then in classroom, the fee is 45,000 rupees. In virtual, it's 37,500. In e-learning, it's 27,500. If you pay lump sum, if you say, no, I'm making all the payment in one go, then you get further discount of 5,000 rupees. 45,000 becomes 40,000, 37 becomes 32, and 27 becomes 22,500. Now, as I said, classroom is not functioning right now because of COVID protocols. So don't look at classroom. Virtual is available to you at 32,500. E-learning is available to you 22,500 if you pay in lump sum. So that's the study fees at ICOFP. But the best part is all of this is made far more accessible for you because we have a 0% student loan facility as well, right? So you pay it in easy EMIs, making it far more accessible. This 27,000 rupees, even 27,000 rupees you can pay in EMIs. So you can enroll for and study for CFP with us in what, approximately 3,000-4,000 rupees a month. That's the kind of advantage that you have. Another great thing, another very, very special offer for all of you who attended this today. And this is only for those who have attended this today, who have registered for this talk today. And this is a limited period offer, by the way. I can't offer it to everyone. So this is only for the first 15. Let me emphasize first 15. The 16th person, if you reach me, I will not be able to give it to you. So the first 15 only, the first 15, for them, the offer is, if you enroll for CFP, if you join for CFP study program with us, you get NISM 10A, 10B absolutely free. The NISM 10A, 10B package, that doesn't cost you anything. That means NISM 10A, 10B I have shown you, it's 15,000 rupees that you get completely free. So NISM 10A, 10B I have shown you what you will get. It's 15,000 rupees package for NISM 10A, 10B that you get completely free. So meaning to say, within your CFP fee of 32,500 for virtual or 22,500 for e-learning, you also get prepared for NISM 10A, 10B. So I teach you for CFP and then I prepare you with all my study materials and everything for NISM 10A, 10B also. So within 22,500, you are getting prepared for CFP as well as 10A, 10B. Within 32,500, you are getting prepared for virtual, for CFP as well as NISM 10A, 10B. So in a way, I have prepared you with everything to be a SEBI RIA with whatever certifications are needed. So that's the special offer, but only for the first 15 participants, first 15 who register. So 16th person will not be able to get it. So that's the catch here. So the ultimate advantage for you is with us is if you join this, you get you study, you earn 4-in-1 certifications. If you do CFP, you get 4 certifications. So you kind of earn 4-in-1 international certificates. You become a CFP as well if you pass CFP. Then you earn NISM 10A 10B because I teach you for NISM 10A 10B also. And then you can also register with SEBI. You become a SEBI RIA. So then eventually you have 6 recognized certifications, 4 CFP certifications and 2 10A 10B. So with me, when you study, I prepare you for 6 certifications. That adds credit to your profile. What happens ultimately is you grow your knowledge, you grow your skills, you grow your credibility, which leads to growth in your business. So that's what SEBI RIA and the path to be a SEBI RIA is. So that's all from my side, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to enroll for CFP or NISM 10A 10B, if you want to avail this offer for the first 15 guys, call us on this number. My team is there to help you, 9711437779. Kanhaiya, I will request you if you can quote this number in the chat also. Call us on this number. Our team is there to help you register today or tomorrow, whenever you want. But the first 15. So if the first 15 end up today, tomorrow I will not be able to give you this offer. Today is when it ends, or tomorrow is when it ends, the moment I cross 15. So don't miss it. We prepare you for CFP 10A 10B with all the knowledge, the practical, whatever I have shown you, the content that I offer, the way we teach you, and then eventually you register for SEBI RIA. You become a SEBI RIA. So that's about it. I think it's time to take your questions in the chat, and then we will take questions one-on-one. Kanhaiya and Krishan, I can see a lot of chats. So I will start taking, but you can also help if I miss something, okay?
Sure, sir.
Lot of it I have answered. So those questions which I have answered, I am not going to take again because anyways I have answered. Yes, it is necessary to have level 1, level 2 both. Level 1, level 2 both, Sweta ji, it's mandatory. Will I get the PPT? Okay, that's all. FRM level 1 currently, and I am mutual fund advisor. How can I expand my horizon? So if you have done FRM level 1 and you are a mutual fund advisor, you want to expand your horizon, means you want to get into multiple products, you need to be an RIA. There is no other way out. So that means either CFP or 10A 10B. You have done FRM, go for CFP. And anyways, when you study with us, not only CFP, I teach you for 10A 10B. So you get that package, prepare yourself, expand your horizon. Can you, okay, voice breaking. Foreign degree is 1 year? No, the postgraduate degree has to be of 2 years. No 1 year degree is allowed. Is distance learning considered? Yes, distance learning is considered. Can engineers apply? No. The stream were mentioned, no, accounts, economics, business management, accounting, actuarial sciences, finance, those were mentioned there. Is all this published on SEBI's website? Yeah, SEBI website, go to regulations. You have 2013 investment advisor regulations, 2020 investment advisor regulations. Just pull that out. You may have to read it because that's a big regulations. You will find everything there. I am a BBA graduate. Am I eligible? So as a BBA graduate, you are eligible to study for CFP. Why don't you study for CFP? Study for CFP, prepare yourself. And you are anyways you will have to do your master's. So you do your master's, and then by the time you finish your master's, you have your CFP also. Go for SEBI RIA registration then. At the same time, as I said in the beginning, anyways, the board and the industry is anyways in talks with SEBI to put graduate plus CFP also as a valid thing. So that anyways is under talks as well. So prepare yourself, join CFP. So if you have set up a company, yes, then you will have to pay Ayushi Gupta. So you have to pay the company registration fee only, not the individual ones. 5 years experience in finance field, that's written there. 5 years experience in the financial markets, financial products. Anurag Singh says on SEBI portal, no, please pull out the SEBI circular. I have a SEBI circular printout. If you can allow me, I will need to go back to the room and can bring out the SEBI circular. Probably that may not be visible to you here. Please read that. It's very clearly, categorically mentioned. NISM 10A, 10B, investment advisor or certified financial planner from FPSB. It's very categorically mentioned. Or similar ones. Other, there is an ambiguity, but in these two, there is no ambiguity as such. Very clearly and categorically mentioned. Nitin says 1500. I told 1500 only. 10A, 10B, I said 1500. 15,000 I was saying. 15,000 I was saying is 5,000 rupees you pay for your initial registration, the application. 10,000 you pay when your registration is accepted by SEBI. That's for RIA, not for NISM 10A, 10B. 10A, 10B is 1,500 only. That's what I have written in the PPT as well. Any strategy for clearing the exam? Facts. See, Arpit, the only strategy is prepare best, study with the best, prepare best, read the good study materials, read good books, get taught by the best of the faculty, have enough of practice, do use good workbooks to practice yourself, take mocks, all that. So that's what the content that I was saying you has been devised based on that strategy only, that how do we prepare you to crack the exam so easily? And that's one of the reasons why we clock 80% of the success rate. Grisha is saying, can I see the NISM 10A, 10B course slide again? Yes, you can see, Grisha. Let me take you. Yeah, so it's 1,500 only. If you can see here, this is what I've written, fee. Okay. So this is a 10A, 10B, Grisha. What is the passing rate of CFP? In the industry, passing rate of CFP is just around 50%. I said just around 48, 49%. We have clocked a passing rate of 50%. 80%. So that's our passing rate, 80%. Whereas industry's passing rate is just around 50%. So that's a super proud moment for us. I mean, right from the last evening when the results were announced, we were all celebrating it that, yes, we have cracked it. We have done it again. Fee structure again. So I'm coming to fee structure. Upendra is asking for something. So let me show you the fee structure again. Yeah, so this is the fee structure. Yeah, any graduate, not necessarily you do MBA or this and that. Any graduate can do CFP. That's answered. CFP plus graduate is not eligible for. Okay, Bhupendra is saying CFP plus graduate. See, Bhupendra, CFP plus graduate as of now is not eligible to register as RIA, but CFP plus graduate, CFP, graduate plus CFP as a whole is somebody who is widely recognized in the industry. So you are hired by the industry. You will be probably hired by top of the wealth management firms, top of the financial firms to work for them. So that's the kind of career aspect that you need. Don't look at everything from the perspective of only leading to RIA. If you have to register for RIA, then you have to meet their criteria. Yeah. Yogesh is saying for practicing 10A, 10B is enough. What is the use of investing in CFP? So Yogesh, you see, for people like you and me who work into the financial industry, we need to understand one thing. The one key area which as financial professional we need to be aware of is how do we build our skill set? How do we build our knowledge? I mean, it's more like investing back in our profession. The way probably maybe people are investing in their businesses. Our business is person driven. Our business is driven by us. So we are investing in ourselves. We are upgrading ourselves. We are learning more. We are getting more certifications. So adding an international certification like CFP is always going to be wearing a hat for you. So why not do this? See, if you are looking at doing this is enough, then doing graduation was enough. No, it was not needed that you do MBA. Why did you do MBA? You did it because you want to learn more. You want to be among the top league. You want to be far more prepared. You want to be better than others. Yeah. So that's what it is. So I think I have taken a lot of questions. So research analyst, NISM module, that's a very separate thing, Shweta. We can talk about research module separately with you. Krishan can connect you with me, not a problem. Krishan, if you can take notes, Shweta is asking about research analyst. That's off the track. So I'm not taking that here, but I can explain about research analyst.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Experience requirement for CFP, Ashutosh, is so CFP, when you complete your CFP certification, for CFP membership, they say either 1 year of supervised practice under a practicing CFP. Somebody who is already a CFP, if you practice under his supervision for 1 year, supervised practice, if you do, then you are eligible for the CFP membership, or 3 years of financial experience. Yeah. Sriram, 4 years BE, 18 months executive MBA is not eligible. For RIA, it's not eligible. For RIA, it's not eligible, Sriram. 18 months executive MBA is not eligible. But for CFP, it is. For NISM 10A, 10B, it is. Yeah. Lalit is asking what is the total cost, total fee structure of CFP course. So I have told you $890 for FPSB, and that which is again paid in installments, not in one go, as you move ahead. And for us, you can see here 32,500 or 22,500, either based on whatever you pick. So if you go for e-learning, it is just 22,500, and within that you get 10A, 10B also. Shubham, Shubham wants to talk. Krishan, Shubham wants to talk to me personally. If you can connect him with me, or you can give him my number later. Don't put here on chat. You can give him my number later. Atul Gupta, Krishan. Atul Gupta is also somebody who wants to talk to me separately. So you can give him my number. They can call me anytime. Shubham and Atul, you can feel free to call me anytime. My colleague Krishan will give you the number. Don't worry. So Kanaya, time to unmute the 3-4 raised hands, whatever I can see here. So Shubham, Atul, you can call on this number. Most probably Krishan will be the one who will be there, and he will give you the number. He will give you my number. Connect me after 6 today, anytime. Kanhaiya, can you unmute Bhupendra Kushwaha ji?
Bhupendra, you can talk. You can unmute yourself now. Bhupendra ji, you there? You can unmute yourself.
Move ahead, Kanhaiya. Bhupendra is not able to.
Hello.
Yeah, he has unmuted. Yes, Bhupendra.
Yeah, so sir, actually you provided the clarification for the same. Actually, my question was that if CFP is not eligible, so you told me that we can work in a very good reputed wealth management firms and all the things. Yeah. But if we only see for the IRA perspective, so NISM certification is same equivalent as CFP. So we don't need to invest such a huge amount for CFP if our only perspective for IRA. But if you want to work in a well-reputed firm, so then it's a good career aspect.
Okay. So Bhupenji, coming back to it. So again, this is what I clarified, that look at it as a kind of knowledge building, as kind of a skill set building. Don't say NISM 10A, 10B is equivalent to CFP. It's not equivalent. It is just that.
No.
Just that.
Sorry to interrupt you. For only IRA, I said.
For RIA also, I am saying. Yeah. It is just that they are meeting the eligibility criteria prescribed for RIA. tell me one thing. If you apply for UPSC exam, for civil services exam, even a BA Hindi can apply for it. Even a BTech computer science can apply for it. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, does that mean BA Hindi is equivalent to BTech computer science?
No, not like
that. So that's what I'm trying. It is just that they are the same passing criteria, the eligibility criteria, but they are completely different. Their knowledge, skill set, strength is completely different. You have to look at it that way.
Okay.
See, if you do not understand the value of it today, tell me how will your client understand the value of it? Then why will he come to you? He will say, my next door guy, who is an agent, he charges me 10 rupees and does this work for me. Why should I come Upenderji, who is charging me more?
No, actually, I got
he will come to you because you will have credibility, because you will have a different approach, because you will be helping him with better advice.
Yeah.
So higher degree, right? So that's what it is. Yeah?
Yeah.
Hope I'm clear.
Clarified.
Yeah. Kanaya, can we go next?
Yes, sir. Meanwhile, Satishji has a question, sir. BCom plus LIC agent for 10 years. Hello?
Yeah, tell me.
So, meanwhile, you can answer Satishji question, sir. He is a BCom plus 10 years of experience in as a LIC advisor. Can he go for a RIA?
See, for RIA, it's not BCom. The mandatory requirement is you need to be a postgraduate. So you can do 2 years post-graduation from anywhere, from maybe online, from correspondence, that's fine, but that's needed. Or else, parallelly, you start doing CFP. As I said you earlier, the board, the industry, everybody is pursuing SEBI, that graduate plus CFP should be considered. Who knows, maybe that is also considered, but parallelly, you can start doing your 2 years post-graduation from somewhere online. One interesting question Sachin asked is, what if my civil is not high? Can I get registered for RIA? See, as much as, though SEBI has not clarified what is this civil score needed, but as much as I have understood from my from my various talks is, anything beyond 600, anything above 600 is what is okay with them. Okay. Mayank, I'm eligible in finance. Mayank says, I am an MBA in finance and marketing. Am I eligible to? Yes, Mayank, you are. Perfect. Ansari ji is asking, when do I get our certificate for this webinar? Certificates will be sent to you in a week's time. It will be mailed to you for sure.
Sweta ji, you can unmute yourself and you can ask your question. Yes, please go ahead.
I am not able to hear you at all.
Hello.
Can you speak a little louder?
Yes, sir. I'm asking that, is it necessary to clear all the levels of CFA, or is it well to clear only 1 or 2?
CFA?
Yeah, sir. I'm asking about CFA.
No, CFA, the qualifications perspective you're asking?
Yes, sir.
If you read that, Shweta ji, again, it's not levels. It's written CFA charter holder. So not merely passing CFA all 3 levels.
Sorry, sir. I'm asking about the exam of CFA that is given in 3 levels, sir. So is it necessary to clear all the levels, or it will be fine if I have to clear only 1 or 2?
No, that's what I'm answering you. CFA is a qualification which is okay if you are not having post-graduation degree. But if you are a CFA, you are eligible for SEBI RIA, right? So you are asking me whether CFA level 1, level 2, 3, all levels are required, or passing 1 or 2 level is okay?
Yeah.
Correct. That's what I'm telling you. That if you read my slide very carefully, I mentioned it. CFA charter holder is eligible, not even completing CFA. After completing CFA, that practice period of 3-4 years, and when you get your CFA charter, when you are endorsed by whatever the CFA charter process is, if you have to get multiple endorsements and everything. If you get that, the moment you get a CFA charter, then you are eligible for it, not merely passing level 1, 2, and 3. So you have to pass all 3 levels. You have to have a CFA charter. Yeah. Kanaya, let's go next.
Kulbir ji, you can talk. You can.
So I have a quick question as clarity. I remember reading about this, that under the RIA model, the person can only charge advisory fees. He cannot have a commission. And this commission cannot, and the commission structure cannot be from anyone through his family members also. This was a clear example that they had mentioned, that there were some people registered as RIA, and the individuals in the family may be distributors or agents of other financial products, and they can earn commission through them. This was clearly stated that, so how are the individuals able to do? They have an advisory and at the same time earn a commission model also, because the companies were also doing it, and this was an attempt to put a stop to that. So how are they doing it right now then?
So Kulbir ji, that's what I mentioned, that when you become an RIA, all you earn is the fee-based commission. Now, coming to the other thing, there are other routes that I was telling, that's what the other people are using to route it to. Okay. So let's say a company has partners, has 3 partners in it. Now, the company, a firm, investment advisory firm, I took the registration in the name of the firm. Now the firm doesn't know my wife. If I have a code in the name of my wife, the firm doesn't know my wife. SEBI doesn't know my wife. For SEBI, it's just an ARN code that exists there. There is no relation at all. So that's what I quoted an example also, that people have started using that they are taking it in the name of an individual or a firm, and the other codes exist in some other names. Right? Okay. So they are kind of finding a business solution to it.
Okay. I have another question regarding the CFP module. Yeah. Now I have done my CFP with respect to 2 modules right now under the old course. And for reasons best known to me, I was just not able to concentrate on the exams and complete it. And I don't think I'm in a situation right now to do it in the next 3 months, in the next 2 months also, or less. So if I go for the next session from April, how will this take shape will it have any carryover options for me of the 2 courses that I have completed, or will I have to start off fresh completely?
So Kulbir ji, FPSB is yet to announce the migration policy from old curriculum to the new curriculum. But having said that, what has I understood from the talks that I keep having with the FPSB board is, anyone who has done 2 or 3, minimum 2 or 3, might be allowed to migrate from old curriculum to the new curriculum. But might be. There is no certainty as such, no official confirmation as such. So if they allow you the migration, then you will be allowed to migrate and attempt it as per new curriculum. But if they don't allow you, then you will have to enroll with the new curriculum again, and you will have to do it all over it again.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Gaurav ji, participation certification will be sent to you. Kanaya is the one who will be helping you out with all that in a week's time.
Hi, Rajesh. Good evening.
Yeah.
This is Sriram from Bangalore. Thanks a lot. Excellent session. A lot of clarity. This is a question that I asked. You clarified twice. I'm sorry, but I'll ask you 3rd time. So I have a 4-year BE degree, and I have an 18-month executive MBA in international trade. Right. So you told me that I'm eligible for CFP and 10A, 10B, but not eligible for RIA. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So when I do this CFM or 10A, 10B, if I don't become an RIA, then how do I don't have a umbrella under which I can practice, right? Can you just help me understand that?
So I told you, so what you can do is parallelly, you can start a 2 years postgraduate online program, maybe from some XYZ university, XYZ institution online. So you can do it comfortably sitting at your place. Okay. So because you will have to meet that requirement. Tomorrow, maybe 6 months time or 3 months time, whenever, if the industry and the board is able to persuade SEBI to consider graduate plus CFP as the eligibility, then it's fine. Then it's not required. But let's not waste time. Parallelly, you can start doing online. Parallelly, you can start pursuing CFP 10A, 10B as well.
So that 2-year post-graduation should be in those areas that you mentioned in the slide, correct?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Ashok Chandran, Kanaya, if you can unmute Dr. Ashok.
Sir, in your slide, which mentions about who should have an RIA, the third point says a person who has multiple lines of business or who is distributing multiple lines of products.
Yeah.
So I now distribute multiple products, mutual funds as well as insurance products. So is the ruling mandating me to be an RIA since I'm distributing multiple products?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes.
So if I do it, then I'll not be able to do multiple, right?
Yeah. It is just that SEBI has said it gradually over a period of time, the grip is going to tighten.
Okay.
Yeah, you remember way back, if you go back 20 years ago, probably opening a Demat account was just done on introduction. And today when you open a Demat account, it's probably even tougher than applying for a loan.
But the moment I register, but the moment I do become an RIA, then I will not be able to practice the distribution. So on one hand, it is saying if you're having multiple distributorship, you should be an RIA. And on the other hand, they are saying if you become an RIA, you cannot distribute.
No, they are saying then you cannot earn a commission. Right. Okay. So you can offer those products, but you cannot earn a commission.
Okay. Got it.
Right. And there are other ways to earn commission, as I said earlier.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Kanaya, so I think there are no more raised hands, and we have taken almost all, if not all, then almost all. I've tried my best to answer all the questions. And Krishan, my request to you is couple of participants who said they want to talk to me personally, just share my number with them. And
sir, already shared. They will speak to you around after 6:30.
Yeah. Kanaya, I can see one more raised hand. Neil, if you can unmute him.
Neilji, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you for that. I have a question, just as part of the CFP curriculum also, there is some experience required before getting the CFP charter, right?
Yeah.
If I'm correct. Yeah. So I think 3 years or 4 years, something like that. So will that further delay the process of registering for RIA?
No. So I said you that CFP charter, getting that CFP charter, for that the requirement is either 1 year of supervised experience under a practicing CFP or 3 years of financial markets experience. So it's better that if you want to expedite, then get that 1 year of supervised. There are lot many practicing CFPs. Even our faculties are practicing CFPs. So get that 1 year of supervised experience under them so that you quicken that path. Why to waste 3 or 4 years?
Okay. And just an associated question, that experience, if you have worked in offshore setups of global financial services firms, is that valid or it has to be an Indian market experience?
No. Global experience is also valid.
That is also valid.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you were an employee of global financial services firms, that's fine with them.
Yes.
Okay.
Krishan, one more name, Harita Naluri. Harita also wants to speak to me. If you can share my number with him or her.
Okay,
Harita.
sir. Sure, sir. Sure.
So if there's a chance, sorry to interrupt, but just I'll just take maybe half a minute. Just reading the SEBI guidelines, they have said in terms of CFP or NISM 10A or 10B, it says for CFP accredited by NISM. So there is no separate accreditation required, right? I mean,
no. It's written because earlier CFP exam used to be conducted by NISM. As of now, because of COVID and all, the board is correctly itself doing the exams. So that's why it's written like that. Yeah.
Okay, but it's either or now. I mean, it's
yeah, yeah, absolutely yes.
Okay, thank you.
Manoj ji is saying my education is 12th and 5 years. Yeah, so to do CFP, minimum required education is 12th only. Manoj ji, you can. Kanhaiya, if you can, Kanhaiya keh raha hu. Krishan, if you can speak to Manoj Singh, Mr. Manoj Singh.
Sure, sir.
Just take. Kanhaiya, I'm sure you are taking a history. You are saving the history of the chat. So if at all there is anything which I didn't answer, we will answer you. So don't worry. We are saving the chat for our history. So Kanhaiya, are we done?
Yes, sir. Rajesh ji, you can unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Yeah.
From Rajesh sir. Venkat ji, you can ask your question from Yeah, Rajesh ji is back. Rajesh ji, you can continue.
Hello.
Yes, Venkat ji, please go ahead.
Hello, sir. Is it audible?
Yes, yes, you are audible, loud and clear. Please go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear anything.
Probably.
So anyways, all right, guys, it was great talking to all of you. It was great sharing my experience, my knowledge with all of you, and helping you with all the more information on SEBI, RIA, NISM 10A, 10B, CFP, and all the other stuff. Me and my team, we thank you for joining us today. We remain here to help you. That's why we have flashed our number. We have quoted the number in the chat as well. Those of you who wanted to connect with me personally, my colleague Krishan will call you, share you my number. You can feel free to call me anytime after 6 today, of course. After 6:30 today, you can call me anytime today, tomorrow, whenever you want, feel like. And let's connect. Let's have a chat and let me help you further. So that's all from my side. Thank you all. Thank you for joining us today. Have a great day. Signing off.
Thanks, sir.